righty. So today we are talking about being more productive. I think as a business owner, this is the struggle that we face every week, every day. At least personally, I can say that. And I want to preface this before I get into this too deep. I am by no means here to tout myself as a productivity expert. I consider myself an eternal student, always seeking to better myself. Read constantly. I've had my father and instilled in me a love of reading at a very, very young age. I remember going to the library from long before I could ever even really read, but just going in and holding books and looking at books. And so I consider myself a constant student, and I hope that today, if anything, is an opportunity to see what my journey was, and perhaps provide you insight into things that I did and some thoughts that may lead you along your productivity journey. So the highlight here is we're going to start with talking about where I started and why. Then we'll talk about some books, authors, apps, and more. And then we'll finish out with I'm going to provide you a direct way in which I build my day for success, and hopefully something there can provide you some tools and tips that could make it easier for you. So let's jump right in here. So how I started my productivity journey. So it's an interesting story. It actually, for many of you who are in this know, my wife, Gabby Barantes, I'm not sure how her name is showing here. Cydia, it might be showing that as well. But I've been a business owner for 7 years in the marketing industry. And as time went on, being in a business owner is stressful. I think we can all attest to that. And it generally causes us to get like lost in the weeds, not being able to see the trees from the forest, whatever metaphor it is that you want to take from it. I was getting to the point after about 3.5 years of being a business owner, I was getting stressed out. I was getting anxious. There was things that were, I felt like they were outside of my control. And I felt like I'd reached a point where what I was doing was not enough. I'd gone a good distance as a business owner, but I felt like I needed to step up my game. And I think that's a common thing. And if you experience that, give me a thumbs up, give me a hello, so that I know that I'm not alone there. But I needed to find a way to be more productive. And so I really started to look at my day here. And I actually pulled this directly from my calendar, or from my productivity journal that I write in probably weekly, daily, and sometimes it only ends up happening monthly. But I sat down in 2017, 2018. It was 2018, and I mapped out what I did in a regular day, and I tried to then better identify what it is and how long it was going to take me to do that. And so this right here, I want to preface, this was my step one. I will tell you, I have moved on and gotten better and better and better at this, but you have to take that first step and simply look at your day and look at the recurring tasks that you have on a daily basis to establish why. And so my wife actually got me a book because I'd been thinking about exploring meditation, and I was thinking about productivity and meditation hand in hand. And so I looked at what the why was. And for me, the why was I wanted to have more focused time with Gabby and with work time. And I wanted to really establish a true relaxation time for her and I to grow together, but also to truly turn off work-related conversation and thoughts during off hours and stick to it. Now, I'm not sure, she's probably smiling right now because she will most definitely say that that is not something I'm always very good at. And you'll find me at 2, 3 in the morning, her sleeping and me whiteboarding because I can't stop thinking about work. But I needed to find a way to be better at that. And here's another aspect of it. When I was doing meditation, it got into my head that I have a monkey mind. And I don't know about you, but my brain is constantly thinking about ideas, and it's got new idea here, new idea there, new idea here. And it's like, to get that monkey brain to slow down, I went to meditation. And then recently I actually found out that I am ADHD. wasn't necessarily the biggest surprise, but ultimately this was a why in my journey of finding out what was going on and what was outside of my control, and how could I find ways to control that thing that I couldn't do, my monkey mind, slow it down. So I started reading, and here's the people that I read, and these will be available. Brendon Burchard is a uniquely wonderful writer of high performance. He talks about high performance in a very, very, very easily relatable way. His book, High Performance Habits, was a mind-blowing experience for me. And actually, his other not necessarily a book, but his planner is what I use, and something we'll get into later. I use this every day. It's a paper planner because my brain needs the physical connection of writing down just to really connect at a higher level. And then I started reading people like Charles Duhigg. Power Habit was the first one. Smarter, Faster, Better. That Charles Duhigg talks about the action of making a habit. It's funny to think about, but there are habits that you and I today in 2020 take for granted as normal. One of the things it talks about in the Power Habit is if you didn't know this, before World War I, America did not brush their teeth in the morning and the evening. And in fact, the US government actually looked at the habit of oral hygiene as a potential threat to winning World War I, because they were worried that the soldiers out on the battlefield would actually not die from being wounded by bullets and bombs, but that because of the conditions they were in and the conditions of their oral hygiene, they actually began instilling a habit in the soldiers to go and brush their teeth in the morning and brush their teeth in the night, and that came back. And when those soldiers returned home, they actually then brought that same habit to their families. And now you're talking nearly 90, 80 years later, you and I are just, we don't even think about brushing your teeth as a common practice. And so when you think about productivity, you have to think about the habits you make and the habits that you have, and begin to reevaluate them by determining what is serving your ultimate goals. And the other book I read recently is actually Traction by Gino Wickman, which is a great business productivity book that essentially helps you to understand how to formulate your 90-day plan and put it into better perspective for your team to really look at their goals on a week-to-week, day-to-day basis and month-to-month basis, and then really pull in the understanding of your whole team into perspective. And then lastly, I read this just last year, was Be Obsessed or Be Average by Grant Cardone. He's an interesting cat. I'd say he may not be everybody's cup of tea, but one of the things I loved about Grant Cardone is that he is obsessed with his life, and he seeks to never have to feel like he's working, because he wants to be doing what is the most exciting to him, and he's obsessed with his life. He's obsessed with doing it, and that's something that I drew to because I am really obsessed with connecting. I'm really obsessed with conversation, and I've always been obsessed with writing, and to me those were natural connections. So let's get into the apps I use. So I use a couple simple apps each day to better myself. One of those is a Pomodoro timer. Pomodoro is it's also called an Apple timer. So an Apple timer, essentially, you set a time frame that you are going to focus on a specific task or a specific type of task. You set a timer. In this case, the standard is about 25 minutes on, and then you take 5 minutes to rest. Because if you don't rest, your mind loses focus. And so the whole theory of the Pomodoro timer is that if you can focus for a very specific time and then rest for a very specific time, it allows you to better manage the task and ensure you're getting it accomplished in a timely manner and understanding what happens. I also use a Loop habit tracker. This is essentially, and here's the thing, there are a number of these for all of the different app systems out there, and I highly recommend just looking up Pomodoro and Loop habit tracker, because you'll find one, whether you're iPhone or Android, you'll find one that works best for you. But Loop habit tracker is a tool in which you just simply list the things that you need to do on a weekly and daily basis. You set up a reminder, and it's great because it's sticky and it will tell you what you need to get done, and then it sticks on there until you click it that you're done. I also use Asana, and this is more for my team, and we'll get into a little bit later with some business tools in the next slide. But Asana is a great tool for project management, and then I use Google Docs to manage my productivity journal. Previously, I've used Todoist. It's one of those that we feature, and Evernote. It's one of those we feature here at Local Links as an opportunity. You can go to locallinks.online and find those tools in our business tools. But ultimately, if you see right here, this little image is my Pomodoro timer, and that's actually from about 5-6 hours ago. And what that shows is the things that I was focusing right now was operational execution, and I had 14 minutes left in my Pomodoro. And then I got a break. So let's see, let's talk next. So business apps, so customer resource managers. These are key to any business. If you are not currently using some sort of CRM, I highly recommend you use them. Keep is actually one that we have on our store. It's not one I'm personally currently using, but is one that I've evaluated and feel it's a great tool. I will say ultimately when it comes to CRMs, there are different styles for different types of businesses. If you are highly in sales, I recommend Salesforce. If you're looking more for something like customer service, I'd recommend Zoho. They do have a pretty good customer service portal, but HubSpot is an ultimate marketing platform and CRM. Other task and project management tools, Monday.com is very equivalent to Asana and one I almost chose over Asana. And Trello is actually one, if you want to ask, I believe Carissa Catalina actually uses that one. And essentially, just as with a CRM, the tools that you use are really based on what works best for you, but I can recommend that these are all really good tools that serve different purposes. So let's talk about building your day for success. So as I mentioned earlier, I use, and actually Matt, who is with us now, Matt and I are both using the High Performance Planner here. And so this is actually a snapshot of a page recently from my book. And it's from August 27th. And so I want to go through this with you to really help you understand how I plan my day for success. So this starts off with the morning mindset. So you start off with 10 questions to help put you in a positive mindset, help you to understand what you may face, help understand who you need to serve and who you need to, who you're doing this all for. If you see right there, question number 3, I'm doing this to, why I'm on my A game is for my wife. I want us to have a successful life. You know, a situation that might stress me out, rejection. I think we can all understand that rejection is something that every one of us as business owner, it's something that could stress you out, but then it gives you a way to think about how you can move past it if you experience it. And from there, I begin to map out my day. Now, I want to note here, I actually start my day at 11 in the morning, and here's why. I actually am extremely night oriented. I network, as I think you guys all know, most of the time until 8, 9 o'clock at night, and sometimes later. And so if I started my day every morning at 8 o'clock, I'm just pretty sure I would be dead by 6 o'clock. And I need to be at my best when I'm networking at night. And so I start my day at 11 with a morning routine. I go through that every day to ensure that I've got my meditation, I've filled out my high performance planner, and I've taken a moment to stretch. At which point then I plan each and every hour with specific information, both pulled from my calendar on Google Drive, as well as just generally highlighting things that I need to get done. But here's the key. I break this down by a combination of 2 things, goals and tasks. Now, goals, as we all know, are the big picture items, the things that we're looking to achieve. Those don't always get accomplished in one day. Now, that's not to say a goal can't be accomplished in one day and can't be started and accomplished in one day, but you have to think about it as the goal is the big picture and the tasks are dependencies that help you reach that goal. Each week, Matt and I meet on Saturday afternoon, and we talk about the goals that we have, and then we each ascribe a dependent task that we feel that will help us to meet that. In this case, for example, we are building Easy Alfred, which is our B2C business, our connection for concierge service to local businesses for vacation rental guests. And so right now we're seeking to get 250 houses on our platform for our launch. But at least by the end of the year, we want to have those. And so as you see in my tasks, you'll see there's task number 2 is an ROPP FAQ. Essentially, I need to build a frequently asked questions to help my rental owners and my power partners know what they need to do and what they can expect from our service. And so all my tasks should go towards seeking my goals here, and each and every single one of them should be ultimately seeking to achieve what is my goal for that week, that month, that quarter, or that year. And then after I get to a point, and I end my day probably around 2:30 or 3 in the morning every night, and I go and sit down and I do an evening journal where I try to think of positive things that happened that day, even if the day was terrible, even if everything worked against me. I want to be able to highlight something that worked, because that can help me at least end my day feeling like I achieved something. And so I map out things like a moment that I really appreciated, a situation or task that I handled well, and then something that I realized during the day. And then even also, you want to tell yourself how would someone else view your day, and give yourself a positive or sometimes negative, not negative, but I like to say, reinforce what didn't work, and reinforce what worked, and seek to find solutions for what didn't work. And then I get even as detailed as possible as I actually go and check off everything. And I use a situation where I check, or I provide a minus if all I did was get it started. And then I ultimately calculate the amount of tasks that I complete to ultimately give myself a success, or sometimes not so successful day. So we're getting close to 5 o'clock. I want to end this real quick by giving you something that we can help you out with. If you haven't yet, go to our website and help yourself help us help you by filling out what your top week goal is. This will actually then send you 7 days later a reminder of what your goal was for the last week, helping you to keep track of your goals at a higher level, but not just simply write it in a book, which is great, but we don't always have time to go back and find what that goal is. And this will actually email you that goal and let you kind of keep track of it at a higher level. And I think we have a few questions here, so why don't I open this up for questions? Matt, would you mind helping me out?
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome.
I gotta scroll back in the list now.
Okay.
So we've got a couple people just dropping their info in. Actually, we did not have any questions in the chat. Oh. So I will go ahead and ask a question, because I think it's one that you and I talk about a lot.
Sure.
When we find that we are getting off track, how do you help yourself recognize that?
How do I help myself recognize that?
Yeah, when before, or if we're not meeting, because we said that you and I meet weekly, so if it's Wednesday and you see yourself getting off track, but you don't exactly know what's off track, what do you do to help trigger the thought process of how to actually get back on track? How do you assess your goal at that point?
Yeah, so when I'm looking at the goal overall, the key thing about the goal is that it's got to be attainable. And so when you find that your goal is maybe lost its attainability, it's at that point that I generally sit down and look at the timeline of what I need and try to reassess a true SMART goal. Because every time I've given myself a goal that I will be frank, it is not always, until you get into the meat, what's the Mike Tyson, until you get punched in the face, you don't know how you fight. That is as applicable to goal management and planning. And so it's about reevaluating, but also setting up ways that motivate you. Matt and I provide ourselves punishments, and we generally do those around physical activity because neither of us enjoy exercise, but know we need it. And figure at worst, we're going to provide ourselves some sort of positive in a healthy lifestyle by, if we don't achieve something, we give ourselves a punishment and seek to do it. Last week, my goal was to sign 10 new power partners, and I was only I got 4 or 5, I think. And so I had to give myself an extra 100 push-ups on Sunday. So I had to do 200 push-ups on Sunday, and that was exhausting. My wife, I actually sent I sent Matt a video of every single one of them, and my wife's sitting there going, "You can do it," and then laughing at the same time as I'm exhausted by it. But I mean, it's a matter of giving yourself a true goal and honestly a punishment if you don't achieve it, because if you have nothing to work against, then you have no reason to achieve that goal. Sarah said, how do you manage overwhelm and burnout? Burnout is why you need to schedule time out. If you look at, if I pull up that schedule from earlier, I have scheduled in every day. I have scheduled time here. You see break with Gabby from 10 to 1 o'clock. If you don't schedule yourself time to actually do things outside of work, you will burn out. And that is, you gotta be able to schedule time that's not work oriented. And then what does a timeout look like if we can't take 3 hours? Dude, even just going on a walk, Art, even just taking if you got a dog, take your dog for a walk. I was never a dog person until we got our dog, but the biggest thing I love about the dog is that she gives me an excuse to go for a walk, even if I'm not needed, because she is going to pee on the ground if I don't take her. And it gives me an excuse to go for 20 minutes and really be aware and just focus, put some music on, try to think, whatever it is that you do to breathe, try to do that, or meditate. That's usually how I try to take. Even 10 minutes of meditation can be good to help reset your mindset. So, yeah. But I mean, it's 5:03. So if there's no further questions, or if you have any further questions, I'm happy to follow up. Oh, how do you know how much time you should set for a specific project? Carissa, I would say go and overestimate is probably the better way. It's easier to overestimate a time and then underestimate a time, because if you overestimate and you get it done sooner, you can move on to something. So if you think it's going to take 3 hours, give yourself 4.
And I would go the opposite way of Brian's advice. But
okay, go ahead.
I like that, because coming from my developer brain, you always want to overestimate the amount of time it's going to take to do something, especially if you haven't done it exactly before. But also within that, break it down into the milestones and I can't remember what the word you used was, Brian. Dependencies versus the whole thing, because if you can get one part of it accomplished, you might have learned that you are going to need a lot more time for the next pieces, or to Brian's point, you'll know that it won't take you nearly as long as you thought it would. But there is a lot of study done on the amount of time you give yourself is the amount of time it will take to complete something. So if you give yourself 4 hours to complete something you kind of know will only take 2, you'll waste the extra 2 hours. And I would just say, be very honest with yourself. And sometimes you don't know until you try it.
Yeah. Well, hey, go ahead, Gabby.
One more thing that everybody needs to realize, what type of business we all have. So we had to realize that if I manage a restaurant, then I have to get back to my customer with this hour window that I have in the daytime. But when you're building your own business and all that stuff, then you can create your own time. And that's the reason why Brian has this, the book, it actually helps. It keeping concentrate and making every single step. But like Kurt said, each and every one need to know our customers. We need to know our staff. We need to be honest with our staff. And in order to put our time and what is. If it's gonna take 4 hours, I'm with Brian. If it's gonna take 3 hours, I'd rather do 4. And if I had that extra hour, then you know what? That give me time to do something else. But we all different here, and we're all collecting ideas and stuff. So yeah, depend what type of business we got as well.
Excellent.
Yeah, totally agree. And Carissa, I think if you have 3 projects, how do you space out and get the most done in a week? Start with the biggest task first.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Whatever project is going to take the most amount of time to get done, start there and then back it up, because you know what done looks like, right? I think a lot of us start things that we think we know what done looks like, but we don't have it very clearly spelled out. Figure out what done looks like, and then you can back yourself into exactly how much work you need to invest in it.
Well, great.
Awesome. Well, let's get into some of these takeaways that we've had from our groups. Carissa, why don't you kick us off?
Okay, takeaway. I'm gonna start and popcorn to Holly because I feel like she.
Okay. So we talked about Art and his LinkedIn strategy for reaching out to prospective clients, and how instead of just saying like, hey, this is what I do, to kind of help him turn the mindset into like giving, thinking about the client first, or potential client, and offering them something of value. And then as well, posting in his regular LinkedIn posts about offering value ahead of time, so that people build that trust ahead of time. And then with Jeannie, we talked about also building that trust, because she's a financial planner, and how it takes a long time to build relationships with people. So instead of texting so much or emailing so much, that voice messages are becoming a really personal way to communicate with people. And I think that the tone of voice and how you say things naturally when you're talking is less likely to be miscommunicated. And then with my business, we were talking about work-life balance, and how sometimes just changing your scenery helps you get out of work mode and back into life mode. Sometimes I'm working so much that I get kind of addicted to the results-oriented mindset, and like helping people feel so good. So I'm like wanting to do more, but then I needed to take care of myself. And then we talked about Carissa and her mask business, and how we can kind of get those circulated. She's doing an Etsy shop, but also moving her stuff over to her personal website. If you can see her right now, she's demonstrating her ingenuity. And we were talking about posting pictures in the places where her ideal client hangs out. So for her, one of her ideal clients is bearded guys that can't fit their beards in their mask. So she's created this bandana to make it fit more easily, and how just leaving some of her inventory there and selling with a picture of maybe a bearded man before and after, and the pros of buying her
Brian,
product.
Yeah,
Brian's the new model.
Yeah, that's I've already been set up with that. That's coming up soon.
Excellent.
Cool. Excellent.
Good. Those are some absolutely great takeaways. I know for me, creating that space of work-life balance, I close the blinds behind me and I turn off this lamp. And that's my cue to change my brain every day. Doesn't always work, but
hey,
it's a pattern. You got to follow those patterns.
Talking about a hat.
Yeah.
That's a good cue.
Yeah,
oh, nice.
I like it.
Nice. Awesome.
hide all your electronics and have some.
Yeah.
water.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Carissa's group, and Holly for being the spokeswoman. I'm going to call on Sheila from my own group, and she's going to give us our takeaway.
Why, thank you, Matt. I would say we had a theme for us today, and that was a different perspective. So really looking at all 3 of our challenges with a completely different new set of eyes. And we all came up with, for instance, I had always been under the impression that LinkedIn, where my clientele is right, business to business, you're only offering tips, you're never selling. And And then Robert said, well, why don't you do some LinkedIn ads? I guess because I didn't know you could. So helpful things like that, right? It's the exact opposite. And it just goes to show how in our mindset, we get attached to an idea or a thought, and it's sticky, and there's psychology around that. It's where once we have a thought in our head, it takes usually someone else, even if it's very simple, to get us off that thought and onto something, even when we look at it and we say, I could have thought of that, I should have thought of that, but I didn't. And so we came up with some new ideas for Georgie to find, to not look at realtors for her business, for her loan business, but to go back to previous clients and to really stay in touch with them, because that's one of the things that is her unique skill, is that she cares more about the clients than the sale. So to keep that thread going and always being present in their minds when maybe it's not them, but somebody that they know is looking. And then for Robert, we said that he was looking for a specific person to help him out. And Matt kind of turned that on its head and said, well, maybe you could still do those tasks, and maybe you could look for someone to do some other things that it might be cheaper and or easier to find someone who could fill that gap, and you could still stay doing the other tasks instead of hiring out for that. So really simplistic answers, or simple answers, but not easily thought of by ourselves. So that's why we mastermind.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, Colleen, we'll jump to your group.
I think I had text on the chat for Kelly. I wanted Kelly to give her overview of what we did. Kelly, are you there?
I am. I did not see that. I'm so sorry.
Well, now you know. Knowing's half the battle.
Well, hopefully I get this right, since I like to write down notes before speaking. But a couple things that I noticed is that in our group, we were talking about, some of the things to do with power partnerships and how to find better connectivity, and the importance of finding that connectivity in that power partnership. Brian, you and Matt do speak on this quite a bit, and I think it's a great thing, because, finding like, Colleen, how do I say her name again?
Moravid.
I know thank you, Moravid. I am going to get it, Moravid. I promise you. Just finding Moravid. I got it. I'm there.
Close. More Marid. Very close. More
Okay.
and Marid.
Farid.
Morvarid.
Yeah.
Morvarid. If we roll our R, I think we'll get it. Morvarid. But just finding other avenues that we haven't thought of for power partnership. For example, for Moravid, she's used to, attorneys and CTAs, but what about, talking about business owners and business coaches and, people that are outside of her typical realm. For John Paulson, just allowing him to work with also business strategists, and again, thinking outside of the box of, who you normally think of as your business strategist, or as your, I apologize, who you normally think of as your power partner. Go outside that box. I think that's kind of one of the key things, is don't always go to your typical, because sometimes your typical or your atypical is going to be the person who can really move you forward.
Agreed. Think outside the box is, yeah, exactly. Nice.
Awesome. All right. Brian, who's next?
We would have, let's see, Kirk, you want to lead your group?
Yes. So in our group, we had Dan, Connor, and Caden. Connor and Caden are part of the same business. So Dan is a residential real estate agent, and Connor and Dan have, or Caden and Connor have the online business that they're trying to build, which revolves around business cards and then gathering client information and stuff. So kind of our discussion revolved around two things, right? So we're in COVID right now, but we're soon going to be exiting COVID, as the vaccines and stuff start to come out. So start to think of your business on right now, how are you differentiating yourself, and what services have you added or have you changed to get people through COVID? So think about what are the services you offer, how can you help these businesses? If you know businesses that are struggling, how can you help them? And then think about in a couple of months post-COVID, how are you going to change that? Because the audience is going to be changing accordingly. Things are not going to go back to the way they were before. So what's going to change and how are you going to adapt? You don't want to be thrown in and all of a sudden the market opens, but it opens in a different way that you thought. So anticipate how it's going to open. And then with Dan and in real estate and how that's much of an in-person business, we talked a lot about, you know, finding a niche market, finding that demographic that you can focus on and creating educational content out there. So, you know, young people who aren't networking as much or weren't before, how to put that content out that's informational that people can come to you that way versus always trying to sell. So, you know, focusing on a niche, thinking of during COVID, what are your services? And then post-COVID, or at least in the next few months, how things start to change, how are you going to differentiate your services? So that was kind of the high level, you know, discussion we had in and around this. Dan, Connor, Kate, anything else you guys would like to add? Feel free to jump in.
I believe Dan actually left. I'm not sure if he's here.
No, I think he had to head out. So
yeah. Well, one big takeaway for me and Connor, well, I don't know, I won't speak for Connor, but one big takeaway for me is we got some very good insights on potentially solving a problem that we've had, which is, you know, people are not super willing to fill out information about themselves. And we got some really good insights on how we can potentially solve that problem with, you know, shortening and simplifying the process, you know, with multiple choice and drop downs and tags. And yeah, just overall very productive.
Awesome.
Awesome.
All right. And then I think our last group here, we've got led by Gabby and I believe Shannon and Gabby might have been leading that group, one of the two. Which of you would like to either assign or answer for the group? Gabby, you're muted if you're, and I think Shannon, you're muted too.
Might be first to unmute, just gets it.
There you go. All right, Shannon, you unmuted. You're first. Go ahead. From the woods.
Yeah. We talked about, there was Lynn first, who, of course, my notebook is over there now. I can't get rid of the sun. Yeah, no, she's a lawyer, a business lawyer, which was really perfect because that's also kind of my problem, which we all talked so much that we all got cut off, but it was awesome. I don't want to say your name wrong. Is it Terrace or?
It's Lynn Huck. She's the lawyer.
No, Taras.
No, Taras. There we go.
Also known as Lynn Huck, lawyer.
But
yeah, a lawyer.
Yeah, Lynn. Sorry, there was more about Lynn, and you know, she just needed advice on whether or not to go forward with something that she's been thinking about. And of course, I had a bajillion ideas as to how to help her. And then, so you know, that's how it tied into me. And then Terrace was talking about how he's a new photographer and how he loved your ideas with productivity, Brian. So that was like a super helpful thing for him today. He needed that more than
so excellent. Well, I'm glad it was well timed then. So
yeah, it was a good meeting. We hope to get to see Lynn again. She gave us some information for free. Also, yeah, pretty much. It was a good meeting. We had to say, like, a lot of people are like tasting the water to see how warm or cold it is. Like I told her that she's trying to make this business come up, but she still question it, although she has a lot of answers that she already been asking around and she got a lot of answers. She's questioned some stuff. So my thing to her was, if you still question it, then get some more information with the right people, not just go to anybody. Lynn, if you're there, I suggest you need to talk to my husband, Brian Five, to get an idea, because he's also an entrepreneur. Like, you know, Easy Alfred is a business that we're doing as well. So it totally click in the same part that I think that you guys should connect.
Well, Lynn, I'm happy to have a one-on-one call. Just go go ahead and email my@locallinks.online, and my team will set us up with a time.
Thank you.
Other than that, I think it was a very interesting. It was a good meeting.
Awesome. Excellent. Well, we're past 6 o'clock, so we hate to keep you too long. So Matt, you want to round us out?
Yes. So as many of us always say, please come back and join us weekly. We do this every single Thursday, 4:30 p.m. Pacific time. For me, that's going to change. For all you lovely people on the West Coast, actually on Pacific time, that'll stay the same always. So that's why we did it that way. And it's absolutely free. Please, the only ask that we have is bring at least 1 or 12 people with you next time. Somewhere in between there is really good. 1 to 12, it's a solid number. So jump in. All right. Gabby, did you have something else?
Yes. Leave a review. If you guys find that this meeting today was helpful or it can help someone else up there, please leave a review on Local Links. It will be so good for us. The more people that we get, that means the more ideas that we can get. And, so the more people that we have here, then the more ideas that we're going to get up there to put our business, up there. So leave a review.
Amen.
Yes.
Got it, Gabby.
She's jumping ahead on the slides, but we love it. Please leave a review. So we are new ways to connect with your customers from Local Links. There's tons of things. Brian went over many of them in his talk earlier. So if you need some productivity software, check us out. Sarah dropped this in the chat earlier, but I have a feeling she's about to do it again. So you can go to locallinks.online/business-tools, or you can just click that link in the chat. We've got several things there you can check out, but in the emphasis of time here, just a reminder, we do try and have a new presenter each week, whether that's myself or Brian or one of you, which we do have lots of our people who want to help out. Kirk, I think, is going to be helping us out on a future call. And next week, we're really happy to share someone who is a mentor of mine, Mr. Blaine Elkers, and he'll be with us next week talking about really how to structure some time in your day to get a lot of that task list done, kind of a next steps after Brian's productivity talk today. So we do like to leave you with hot tips you can use right now during any state of the world. And sort of as Kirk mentioned earlier, we want to help you start thinking about what comes next, whatever that is, whether that's your business is completely different because of COVID and you can make it work that way, or it needs to go back to how it was before, or a mix of both. We want to help you do that. So this is the amazing community. As Gabby said, we always like to be growing. So please bring people back with you. And as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us and touch base at that wonderful pink slide email. Brian's face is aglow. Many of your faces are aglow. I love it. So
Matt, I want to leave one thing. So for everybody that after we talked about productivity today, we're still ironing out the details, but we're looking at having a 30-minute productivity networking call. We're finalizing the date and time, but we're looking at probably a midday meeting, probably around 1:30, 30 minutes at 1:30 to talk about productivity once a month. So if you are interested in having accountability buddies, join us. Email my@locallinks.online with your information stating I want to be held accountable, or also you can go online and do the I want to be held accountable through what's my weekly goal, and we'll add you into that. We're looking at probably having only 15 people in that because we want to keep it at 30 minutes. So if we end up with more than that, we may end up having 2 of them, but for right now, the plan is to have 1 of them. So if the first 15 people that reach out to us and either sign up to join via our form on the main page or email us that they want in, we'll send them an invite for that first one, which will probably be here in the middle of September.
Excellent. And as always, have a wonderful rest of your week. Go find a beer or just someone to give a hug to, as long as they live with you currently. That's so, otherwise, we'll see you next week. Thank you guys so much.
Bye, everybody. It was so great to see you. Thank you so much.